Hello, everybody. It is me, Pacific, and I have a whole week off. Wow. I'm going to be violating all the pollution laws today or this week, because I'm going to try to upload videos every day for the next 10 days. Okay, so I wasn't even going to talk about this, but it came to me. Yesterday I was in my bus. A guy came to work, he's moving out of state, and he's dropping off lots of books. He has a collection of books ranging from religious to non-religious to psychology to everything, cultures, raising people, kids, on and on it goes. So I found this blast from the past. Julius Fast, best-selling author of Body Language, The Incompatibility of Men and Women. Making your inner feelings understood. Now, all of you know how I feel about psychology, psychobabble. What is the printing on this? 1971. And I picked this book up going, okay, well, what is this about? Well, let me read to you a couple things. Chapter 7. A chapter called It's Tough to Be a Man, and that's what this video is about. When we talk about women today, one thing that we have not talked a lot about is how men today don't know their place. Men have never been taught to become real men. We watched a guy yesterday in Florida with his pickup truck drive like a complete buffoon. And we react to that and go, what is his problem? But let me give you some things to go by that has definitely contributed to the confused identity of today's American male. But let's back up here. In this, it says the boy and girl enter school at the same time, but the school system favors the girl, for it is predicated on the use of fine motor skills, the girl's strongest point. Back up. Girls have fine motor skills, boys have gross motor skills. Gross motor skills, my friend explained to me, are those skills involving running, jumping, shouting, the untrammeled actions of childhood, whereas fine motor skills are the skills that allow careful discrimination, work with the fingers, sewing, printing, writing. He pointed out that in elementary school, if a teacher shouts, sit down, stop fidgeting, stop running, she was always shouting at a boy. Okay, most of you go, Pacific, what's the big revelation here? I'll tell you what it was. Something connected with me. I thought, think about your childhood. I'll get to something. There's very little chance in elementary school for the boy to act out his gross motor needs. He can only run and jump and be athletic in gym or at recess, and even then he's toned down. During the school day, there is almost no physical activity available. Certainly very little gross motor activity. The boy must learn to hold a pencil and practice penmanship, and in general is forced into a development of fine motor skills to compete with the girls on their terms, a competition he is just not capable of handling. Excuse me. This is where the imbalance starts, but it needs not be this way at all. Teaching in elementary schools could be changed to take advantage of the boy's different development. But let's back up. Oh yes, we can talk about changing the system, but has it? I don't think so. Here's a little heading in It's Tough to Be a Man. It's a woman's world. Now, when we talk about psychology, I talked to the guy who brought these books. I don't agree with him politically, but I did tell him, I said, you're very smart. I'm looking at the collection of books you're depositing here for us to take and peruse. I said, did you read all these? He said, actually I did, and I'm just one step away from getting my master's. I was like, wow. Another example of how we in society don't take the time to get to know people. We see somebody with an opposing viewpoint, we go, He or she is a weirdo. We're done. The guy actually has more than an ounce of intelligence. In some way, collectively, based on all the books he's reading, he far surpasses Pacific. Now, a lot of what he's picked up is what we call the worldly wisdom, but that he took the time to read this, he's picked up some truth along the way. I don't agree with all of the books that do psychobabble, psychoanalysis, and this and that. But what is psychology? I was thinking about that the other day in my bus. Now, the world has its definition, but the psychology, to me, psychology is simply studying yourself and then watching people and asking basic questions. Why do they do what they do? Not always easy to arrive at the proper conclusions, but I'm even reading in books that he left about stuff like birth order. What were the parents of my mother like? What were the parents of my father like? What is my dad's idea of a successful young adopted male? What are my mother's idea of a successful adopted male? Does the dad want to live vicariously through his son and make him the next NFL football player? Does dad have a disdain for a boy that's into ballet, into ice skating, or the arts? Ooh, that's going to weigh very heavily on the psyche, is it not? Because if boy can't perform to the parents' expectations, then there's tension. What about if you add other siblings in the mix and there's birth order? What if mom and dad inadvertently favor oldest daughter, which was the case in my family, and then my sister who was adopted, she and I are always looked down on as, well, you're not really blood. Not that that was ever said, but it was said in so many ways. Why can't you be like Sister A? She works at the bank at 16. She has friends. She gets straight A's. Mom, I'm boy. I like riding bicycles. I like rolling tires down the street. I like running around in the woods. I like doing what boys do. I like tearing apart television sets and smashing the picture tube. Why? Because I'm a boy. Listen to this. It's a woman's world. Unfortunately, most teachers of very young children are women. Women, you need to listen up to this, because this is going to give you some insight. Until very recently, all were women, but now a few men are beginning to break into the field, but the wages are still too low and the job is unattractive to men with families. This was in 1971. I know it's dated. But can I tell you all something? I drive for school district. Most of the women, most of the teachers come out are females. Most. With regard to the young kids. Our teaching system is therefore oriented toward girls and run by women. They have neither the time nor the inclination and training to use methods, oh, that's good, messes, that would exploit the boy's skills. As a result, the typical boy begins to develop into a man in a female world, female at school and hardly less female at home. There's a father, but most of the time, he's no more in evidence than the male principal of the school to which the boy goes. Traditionally, the mother runs the home and does most toward rearing the children, boys as well as girls. The father is away all day, and when he returns in the evening, he's often more concerned with his own relaxation than with the identity of his son. That describes my childhood to a T. Dad worked at the insurance office downtown LA. Mother raised me. Most of it was spent in yelling and frustration and wringing of hands that Pacific is a terrible little monstrous boy. Do you remember the cartoon Magilla Gorilla? That was my nickname as a kid, Magilla, if that tells you anything. And those things sound funny, and I look back and go, that was funny, except there was damage done by that. As a boy, I was put down for having gross motor skills, for being hyper, for being loud, for pulling the cat's tail, for grabbing my sister's shoe, for, doing all kinds of things that boys do. It's taken me years to learn with junior high students. Yelling at teenage boys when they throw something out the window, when I pass a pedestrian and they lean their head out and giraffe neck out of the window and go, "Hey, mister." Women get very angry at that. I, as a man, say, I know why they do it. Hey, guys, need you to keep your head in, please. Because if I go by a tree branch or a light pole, you're going to be decapitated. Don't stick your head out the window. Boys usually listen to that kind of stuff quicker than me shouting, "You yelled at that guy." Blah, 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 blah. It's not going to work. What happens to boys raised in a world of women? Sometimes they do well, but in many cases they come to identify too closely with women. Excuse me, have we noticed something? We got a lot of men that aren't men. Take a look at professional men today. They won't say anything that offends women. They hold their hands just right. They wear their suit and tie just right. Women want to make men into nice little boys that are compliant in a woman's world. Now, does that mean that men should just blurt out and say anything they want? No. But I look at our fake, superficial American society and I go, does it have anything to do with this? Oh, you better believe it. What do the guys in their pickup trucks and SUVs being aggressive have to do with this? I would say everything. Maybe if they'd been allowed to be that kid with the gross motor skills then, they'd be less likely to do it now as an adult behind the wheel of a 4,000 or 5,000 pound vehicle. They may be unsure of their own masculinity or even turn into homosexuals in a strange love-hate relationship that sees women's love as a betrayal. Even when they grow up straight, women are always sources of trouble. Listen to this. Lederer, in an analysis of Grimm's fairy tales, comes up with an interesting tabulation of women that reflects how most men view them. In 200 tales, he found wicked mothers or stepmothers, and 16 but wicked fathers or stepfathers in only 3. There were 23 wicked female witches and only 2 wicked male witches. Treacherous maids were killed or endangered. Their suitors numbered 13, but there was only 1 evil male who harmed his bride. There were 9 bad sisters to 1 bad brother. This is the stuff childhood fantasies are made of, and none of it augurs well with the young man starting out in life. He knows what to expect from woman. They will play the heavy in his adult life. Even if this knowledge of a woman's perfidy, never heard that word, perfidy, is subconscious, it is still there. He learns that ultimately women will use and exploit him. But isn't it the other way around? Aren't men the predators, the exploiters, the users of women? Isn't this what women's liberation is all about? This was said in 1971. I could have had a V8. True, they are, and it is, but nothing is simple in our complex society. Things are seldom all black or all white, but there is instead a vast intermingling of grays. The exploited class develops its own techniques of exploitation, and women, traditionally downtrodden, have learned to use men. Take the case of John and Charlotte. Allow me to read this for a minute. From John's viewpoint, when I married Charlotte, everything was roses and honeysuckle. We were both working, and Charlotte didn't want to give up her job. I didn't think she should either. She was assistant buyer at Altman's department stores, and it paid well, and she liked the work. But we put her salary into a separate bank account. Why hers? Well, that was her idea. After all, she pointed out, I was the man in the family, and she was right, of course. She was pregnant within a year, and that extra money went fast. With our second kid, things got rough. Charlotte decided she didn't want to go back to work. What the heck? A kid needs a mother. Charlotte became a full-time housewife and mother. I wasn't too happy about it, John said. Mainly, I had the feeling that Charlotte was working too hard at it. She was alone in the apartment with the kids all day. We have a small place, and it doesn't take that much cleaning. We've got a washing machine and a dryer in the bathroom, so what's the big deal? What I mean is, every night Charlotte was pooped, and she'd snipe at me, making it very clear that I was responsible. All of a sudden, they became my kids. It was my house, and she had given up her career for me. Oh, I'm going to say something about this. I began to get a boxed-in feeling. Heck, if it wasn't for me, she had stopped work. We had talked it all over, and she didn't want her kids raised by a housekeeper. She wanted to be a mother, to take care of the kids' house and kids. I didn't force her into that. For that matter, What I did get out of it, or what did I get out of it? I break my balls at the office, and still I can't keep up with the payments on the apartment, the car, the washing machine. I'm looking for a job at night. The only answer is some moonlighting, but Charlotte gets all sullen when I suggest it. Cuss word. I just wanted her off my back. I want to get out of the house. I can't face the unspoken accusations that are part of every talk we have. Women making men feel good. Pay attention to that. That's Charlotte and John at the stage of first deterioration. The marriage started with much hope and love by both. It's coming apart at the seams, and John hasn't been an exploiter. Far from it. If anyone has been exploited, he has. Funny, this guy talked about this in 1971. Now you don't hear that anymore. Women are just blasting us men at every turn. But it has worked two ways. Charlotte is trapped by what she felt was right. John is overwhelmed by responsibility. Some Johns and Charlottes fight their way out of it, but most accept the situation. As years go by, Charlotte gets tighter and more harassed. Often her only way out of the situation is a constant aggressive attack on John. Typical female today. Much of the final resolution depends on John's success in the world. If he can sublimate his frustration and misery and plunge into work, he may end up well-to-do. Well enough to find a mistress or a series of them and look to them for the love Charlotte denies him. Oh, we're getting somewhere. The reason men have affairs. Oh, but that's always the man's fault. Men are pigs, men are pigs, men are pigs. He's unfaithful to me. Well, when you got a wife acting like this, candy or rice cakes? I see Sarah a few times a week when I'm supposed to be entertaining out-of-town clients, and she's all that keeps me sane. Sarah's everything Charlotte isn't. She's warm and loving and understanding. Even when we don't have sex, I just kick off my shoes and stretch out on her couch and talk to her. It's as if new life were pouring into me. It gets so I hate to go home and face Charlotte. I'm nothing to her. A meal ticket. I'm the kid's private school payer. Her charge account settler. When she looks at me, it's speculative. How much can I afford? Should we move to a new apartment? There's a co-op for sale. There's a sale at this store. A bargain at that one. Her eyes are like dollar signs or numbers on a cash register. Someday, when the kids are grown or when he has had enough, the acute phase of the second marriage syndrome will attack John, and he'll ask for a divorce, and Charlotte will be bewildered and then hurt and then angry, often viciously angry, enough to want to make John suffer in the one place she's used to hitting him. His wallet. I ought to meet this guy. He was way ahead of Michael's time. She's an economic leech, John will say firmly after the divorce settlement. She's always been. She sucks the dollars out of me. Her support, the kids' support, extra for this, extra for that. She can't live now on twice what I made when we first had kids. Prices are up, but not by that much. She's out to get me. She couldn't get me in all the years of our marriage, so she's determined to do it now. Then with a sigh, thank God for Sarah, the mistress. See, even a dumb bus driver can learn a lot waiting for his students to come out in the middle of the day by an old, dog-eared paperback. Is the book wrong? No, she's just stating a fact. Now, let me offer to you something that will be really entertaining. This happened to me. John and Charlotte was not far off. When we had our son, it was agreed upon, this was her. And I said it too, but she said, I don't want him in daycare. I don't think it's right. God gave us a child. I said, good, I'm glad we agree. And I looked at her and I said, well, then you need to come home and I need to trust God. I have no college degree, but we'll do it. You want to know something? I actually believed he'd take care of us. I was scared about having a child, but I thought, okay, God, let's see if you step through. Let me tell you some facts. I didn't have a car back then, or a twuck. Our rent was $650 a month. We paid utilities, which was air conditioning and heating. I had a bus pass. When my son was born, she quit her job. I went to work at a truck dealership every day. When I started off, $10.50 an hour. Worked full time. As soon as she quit her job, my company offered health insurance for all employees. I was able to add on my wife and son. Would you like to know what the cost was in 1999? Or in 2000 when he added us on, the boss added us on. For my wife, my son, and I paid $70 a month for Kaiser full coverage medical. I was like, I'm making $10.50 an hour, I'm working 40 hours a week, and I have coverage for my whole family for $70 a month. I'm going to kick the boot in on Obamacare. Obama doesn't even do that good of a job. Kaiser is good insurance, by the way, one of the best. I worked. We made it. I always paid my rent early. I paid my rent months in advance. We did have a slush fund. I had managed to save $13,000 in the bank. She didn't. I did. I put it away and squirreled it away into an account. Oh, there are times when I wish with all the money we'd inherited that I had secretly put money away in other bank accounts and just never brought it up in the divorce decree, but I'm too honest. I never did that. In 18 months, this is what I heard during the 18 months she stayed home. Constant complaining. You know what? I really want to go back to work. This is hard. I'm home all day. I can't stand this. I think you'd be better at this. She came to me in a meeting one night and said, I think because this is a boy, you'd be better at raising him. And I said, what are you saying? Well, I think you should quit your job and I go back to work. They keep asking me to come back to work. I said, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm a man and I'm not good at child raising. I need to go to work. Now, I admit, I was complaining about some of the problems that were coming down. She kept bothering me with it. 7 months went by after her initial coming to me, and I finally said, okay. Wanting to please my wife, I said, go back to work, then I'll come home. When I came home, in fact, let me back up and say what she said to me right out of her own lips. You know, I'm glad that God gave me a child, but I really don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I'd rather go back to work. This is today's American women, a lot of them. Child rearing is tough. So for 6 years, Pacific did it. This is all true. None of this has been fabricated, exaggerated. I have, well, at the time, I had witnesses to all of this. I had good Christian male friends. I said, I think that would be great. Better that one of you stay at home. My first reaction was, me quit my job and stay at home. All the guys are going to think this guy's a loser. I went to one of my coworker friends at the dealership I worked at. He slapped me a 5. He says, wow, that's awesome. You can sit at home in front of the TV, drink a beer. I said, dude, are you out of your mind? I don't drink. I don't sit in front of the TV. No, I got a kid to raise. That's a stereotypical approach. I wasn't in the position 1 year. She got a good job pulling down $50,000 a year. That was good. 2001, 2002, whatever. She'd come home and complain, my job is so hard. I wish I could stay home with a child. You got the easy job. What did you just say? Run that by me again. Role reversal number 1. And now we're the man saying what the man used to say to the women that stayed at home. Now we're the woman telling the man the same thing. You don't do anything all day. Your house is spotless. They put them in the stroller. We went to the store. We got the grocery. We did this. The laundry's done. Blah, 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 blah. And then in our strange role reversal, Pacific Sidley said, I remember hearing men stupid enough to make the comment when they come home, well, you didn't stay at home all day. And I thought, wow, now I understand why women got so torqued over that. Have you seen the shift in our society? Staying at home means you're a bum. Staying at home means you don't do anything all day. No wonder American women said, well, you're going to tell me when I've been dealing with baby talk all day and changing poopy diapers, don't touch this, stop this, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to come home at the end of your day in the office and say I didn't do anything all day? You were with him for 18 months. You said you couldn't handle it. Can I say something, viewers? I'm glad I had the experience. I came away with the thought, you know what? It was easier to go to a job every day than it was to raise my son. No, am I saying my son was a bad boy? No, not at all. He was a boy. I had better understanding because of what I went through. But I was a little uptight. I admit it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to make a mistake. Quell any rebellion. Don't touch this. But we did have a bond. She complained and complained when she was a stay-at-home mother. I looked her in the eye and I did the man thing. Stay home. I'll work. God will provide. He did. When we reversed roles and I came home, she moved right up mid-level management. Then she'd bring her lady friends home. Women that complained about men. Women that complained about work. Talking about, horse manure that goes on at work. Women that were rude to me in my own home. Women that didn't have children ever. When I was out of earshot telling my wife, boy, he's really hard on your son. Let me tell you what hard was. My son one day was messing around. I used to call him Mr. Strongwill because many times I would turn around and look at him. I said, don't. And he'd look at me and then he'd turn around. I said, did you hear what I said? One day he had been pushing the button, and I finally got up and I said, if you do that again, I'm going to give you a swat. Yes, Daddy. And he stopped it. Friend who I picked up in my truck got her because she does not have a car. Brought her over to our house on Thanksgiving. Quack, quack, quack to my wife about how terrible of a father I am because, boy, he threatened to swat him. It wasn't until a week later that when my wife was out of line and we had an argument about something and she yelled and flung that cow patty in my face. Well, even my friend said that you're too harsh. And who was that? I'm not telling you. Hey, if you're going to fling poo-poo, give me the source. And I want to know what she said and I want to know the context. No, I don't have to. You have a degree in psychology, you're a paralegal, and you're an LPN, and you work in mid-level management, and you can't be professional with me and tell your own husband who's saying this about your husband? Aren't you supposed to defend your man before your friend? Why am I mentioning that? Because I'm talking about women dynamics and the things that really chaps a man's butt. Our marriage, my dignity, and my worth was not number one. Her friends, and what her friends thought about me, that was revered and protected. Women in America today wonder why men get the way they get. I'm giving you some snapshots of truth and telling you that we men go through a lot of crappy stuff with today's American women. But I'm not done yet. Pacific being the obnoxious, intolerable, harsh, misogynistic, racist, homophobic male that he is, according to my female accusers. Drove down to this woman's house, knocked on the door, and I said, hi, can I talk to you? Sure. So why don't we go outside? Because I don't feel comfortable going in here. I said, I picked you up, brought you over for Thanksgiving. I like you. You're from Canada. You seem like a nice woman. Never met your husband. I said, you don't have kids, right? No, I don't. I said, well, you made a comment to my wife, and I wanted to address a few things with you. I said, did you know that I had a full-time job and I was working to support our family? And I mentioned my wife's name. I said she didn't want to do that anymore after 18 months and begged and pleaded and basically wanted her way. So I gave in, being the man that I thought I was trying to be, please your wife. I said, she's done nothing but criticize that ever since. Now she hates her job, wishes she could come home. I said, then do it. Oh, no, no, no. No, why? Well, because at your other job you had problems and now they took away the health. If God wants us to reverse, he'll provide again. No, no, no. I said, you criticized when you saw me say, son, you do that again, I'm going to give you a swat. I didn't scream at him. I wasn't rude in your presence. And you weigh in and pontificate on my fathering skills when, one, you don't have a child, when, two, you don't know what had been happening all day long before you came over and before she was in my presence, meaning my wife. I said, I thought that was way out of line, ma'am. She gave me some lame duck runaround. I said, let me ask you again. If you and your husband invite me over to home and I start criticizing you behind your back, and then your husband uses that against you in a fight, would you have respect for me? She finally backed down and said, I see your point. I said, thanks to you, my wife is using your comment as fuel to the fire of why I'm such a terrible father and husband. I said, I don't appreciate that. I said, when you come into somebody's home, there may be things you agree with or don't agree with, but what you don't have is the background of the preceding day. I did not get a sorry from her. Of course I wouldn't. Thought it was interesting that her husband never frequented the occasions when we were together. I went through a lot of crap with this woman for 14 years. This same woman who, when I divorced her, when I told her I was leaving, folded her hands, smiled broadly, and said, I think that would be wonderful. I think that would be best because we bring out the worst in each other. And I looked at her and said, very well then, that was easy. Now we need to decide about the contents and the stuff. Not interested in all the stuff, but I am going to tell you that the things that I purchased, I'm taking them. There's been nothing but trouble with that woman since I married her, messes of hers from her previous marriage, $15,000 tax debt that her and her ex-husband incurred that Pacific paid out of his school bus driving and other checks. Oh, let me say that one more time. $15,000 of all my money went to pay off her irresponsible behavior to the IRS that her and her ex-husband did. I tried to call ex-husband and say, you need to pay this. No, I don't. I was wrath-filled. I tried to do what was the Christ-like thing, but when I got news of this, New Year's Day dawned. I had gotten this news that there was another debt after I had just paid the $13,000. I called New Year's Eve, 1998. Something told me, I was laying there on the couch going, I paid off the debt. Yes. Something told me, call the IRS. I called them, said, just wanted to make sure that everything's in the clear. Oh, there's money owed from 92 to 93, another $2,000. I'm like, what? By her. I called her and I said, we got another $2,000. What? And she said, oh, yeah, I remember that. I'm really sorry, Michael. I am so sorry to put you through this. Nothing of the sort. New Year's Day, Don. New Year's Day used to be a happy time for me. Go out, go walking, enjoy a new year. I sat at the breakfast table and I didn't say a word, and I stared out the window with a look that said, don't even mess with me. She did not try to hug me. She did not try to apologize. And I thought, man, ever since I've married this woman, it's been nothing but trouble, nothing but criticism. She lives out of a shopping bag. I have no sensual intimacy with this woman whatsoever. Pacific was raised in a society that was dominated by a domineering mother who was immature in her own right and still is. I thought it was interesting when I called my cousin, my uncle, that the wife, my cousin, said, oh, your mom and oldest sister are coming up to see us. I thought, isn't that nice? They've never been up to see them, but now all of a sudden they're going to do it. They were here in Colorado 2 years ago and did not. They're half a mile away to see my ex-wife, who my ex-wife couldn't stand my mother. Because when we were first married, I told her about what I'd went through, and she had no respect for her. But after we got divorced, she made a quick alliance and friends and said, now I get it. Your son was troubled. Your son had all kinds of problems. And then they could commiserate and backstab me till they were blue in the face. I found myself getting down yesterday when I heard that news. When I heard my cousin's wife say, I've never actually met them, so I'm really excited about this. And I'm thinking, why? This is my mother and my oldest sister. The devout Mormon who backstabs, lies, throws people under the bus. My own uncle had some comments about that were not favorable to my oldest sister yesterday on the phone. Still to this day. Now, some woman would get on the side and say, you got parent issues, you need to get over it. I'm over it. But that doesn't mean there's a raw wound there. I go on about my daily life. I get in my bus and I face those children, whether I got mommy issues or not. But it's funny how American women are quick to point out all their boo-boos. I've been around enough children. My own son used to do it. Daddy, look, boo-boo. And you go, let's wash it up and let's fix it. They love that. American women like to go, boo-boo, 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 owie, owie, owie. And they do that all their life. How much sympathy do they need from how many miserable, like-minded women? They got to keep doing it, doing it, doing it. But a man stands up and says, I've been through all this abuse from women. I have had verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse from women. That stuff, when a man says that, today's women, this is what women hear when a man stands up and says that. Wah, 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 wah. Women suddenly go deaf. Why is that? Because for decades in American culture now, women have used this as a rationalization for being a victim, a rationalization for I have the right to get back at this man, I have all this bottled up anger, and you're going to get it because you wronged the queen. You might ask, why are you doing another video on this? Because my view is broadening. My view is becoming more complete and going, so I'm raised in a society dominated by women, a dominating mother who adopted me and my sister because she was unhappy in her life. Let's get more dogs, let's get more cats, let's have kids, because I can't stuff enough stuff in my miserable, unhappy life to make me happy. And then when the kids don't perform to my expectations, Guess what? The mother that adopted me is not singing Farnell Williams' song. Clap along if you feel like room without a roof. No, she ain't going to do that. You, Pacific, did not perform. You're flibbity gibbet, you're McGilla Gorilla, you're destructive, you're hyper, you talk too loud, you eat too much. On and on and on it went. Do you know how many years and decades went by before Pacific began to learn some of the stuff I did was normal boy behavior, but I was compared to the boys across the street? Why? Because the boys across the street on the outside were good. Until I walked to school with them in the morning. Playboy books and dirty looks, hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. The American boy that knows how to play the game in the family. Case in point, school, I had a friend. Not really a friend. He was younger than me, but his father was a psychologist. He was a counselor in Mammoth Lake, California. His daughter and his son were model kids. Until I walked to Mammoth Creek with him and a bunch of other boys, setting fire to old Forest Service houses, smashing windows, breaking things up, looking at Playboy books. This was the counselor's son doing this. But all I heard all my life is, look at him, he's very good at only in front of you. Men and women, are we seeing the disconnect here? Why is it that society goes to church and goes to the office and men stand there, their suit and tie on? Hi, Bob. How you doing? I'm doing good. How are you? Bill? I'm well. Let's see how well he is when he goes into the underground parking garage and gets in a $60,000 SUV and goes tearing out of there and flipping people off, running red lights, cutting in and out of traffic, no turn signal, and somebody honks at him and I'm doing well. Bill is flipping off and not maintaining any composure. Why is that happening? Because Bill learned there's two types of behaviors. The one that we do on the outside for performance sake, and the unbridled rawness that he never learned to deal with as a child. Because Bill was not allowed to exercise his gross motor skills. Are we getting somewhere, viewers? You better believe it. Pacific was made to behave like a little girl. Fold your legs, sit down. It wasn't until decades later that I started to get this. My mother sent me to counselors, psychologists. One of the psychologists she sent me to was a woman with a big thing hanging between her breasts. I told her of some of the stuff I was doing in my childhood that were not appropriate, which I'm not going to discuss. She said, that's normal. There's nothing wrong with it. I told my mother that years later. That's not true. Oh, it's not true because you don't want to admit the fact that the person you were paying to counsel me was telling me it was okay to behave in this particular fashion. Then this highly disturbed, troubled McGilla gorilla boy finds my dad's stash of Playboy books. What do you think that did to my young mind? Wow, Dad's looking at this? All these naked women? And when I first saw that stuff, I'm like, this is disgusting. I'm not going to be graphic, but the old Playboys. And I'm like, who wants to see that? But it did open the door. I learned as a kid that there was a double life to my mother and father. There was the life that they presented to the family and to friends, and then there was the life in our house. The dichotomy of those two worlds was huge. People wonder, wow, this Pacific, I never heard a guy like this before. Psychology is studying yourself and your environment, not Freudian concepts of ridiculousness, not Carl Jungian philosophy, or Marx and all the other yahoos out there, because they were psychologists too in their own minds. My uncle told me years ago, "You are a student of people." I considered that one of the highest compliments I've received to date. People tune into my videos because they're going, my gosh. There's a book out called I'm Okay, You're Okay. Dated. I didn't read it, but it was on the table. And there's a lot of stuff I don't accept. But there's a lot of stuff I was just perusing in here going, this is pretty good. Chapter titled How Men See Themselves, How Women See Men. And I'm not going to read all this to you. Women look at women. And no, it's not lesbian. Why do you think women are turning to lesbian behavior? Well, let me give you an idea that none of us have considered. Today's woman is told that men have body odor, that men have hairy armpits, that men stink, that they don't shave, that men are rough, that men are this, and a lot of that is true. Women are told they're beautiful, you have nice skin, nice breasts, nice outfit. And women, look at women's magazines, what they were doing decades ago, Cosmopolitan, Vanity Fair, all those. They were teaching women at a very young age to look at other women. How many men's magazines are out there showing men with their shirt ripped off their chest and where men are forced to look at other half-nude males? You didn't see it. It was fly fishing. It was American Hunter. It was, Field and Stream. It was, all the World War II. It was all interests. Look at any woman's magazine today, and it's all about how I can make myself beautiful. And isn't she pretty? Isn't she nice? Women have been told over and over, men are bad, men are bad, men are bad, men stink, men are bad at sex, and a lot of that is true. So it only stood to reason that why wouldn't a woman be attracted to another woman? She's clean, she's shaven, she smells good, she looks good. And can I be very blunt? Some women, when they kiss another woman and start feeling her breasts for the first time, they cannot understand. And something comes over them that, oh my gosh, this feels so good. One, because it's forbidden fruit. But men have been beat down by those same women. Women, instead of using their skills as women with young men saying, you're a boy. When it comes to loving a woman, here's some things you need to know. Women could have had such power and influence on us, and instead it was shut up, sit down, stop fidgeting. I remember going on long car trips. My sister and I were in the back seat for 300 miles. I don't think I need to impress upon any of my viewers that is tough for any kid to sit still and behave. Dad's got country music on, which I couldn't stand. You're confined in this car. He's smoking. He's eating his chips. Mother's smoking. And I look at Gina and go, poke. She goes, poke. I poke harder. Stop it. You quit it. Nah. Quit kicking the seat. Knock it off or I'm going to knock your teeth out. Constant saying of my father was, I'll hit you in the teeth. I wonder if CPS was in the car, if he'd be saying that today. Threatening to hit a child in the teeth. That's dumb. That's what I grew up with. My dad made fun of our music. He was very critical about the young people's ways. And yet all I did was go, you're overweight, you're a chainaholic smoker, you're completely boring, and your music is crappy. What did my father do to foster an environment of mutual respect? Survey says. But what did my mother do? How did she handle raising a boy? You don't compare a boy to an older sister who's blood, first of all, because that sends a message. Blood is thicker than water. Number one. Number two, I'm male. Did you not read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? Hello? Most parents in America didn't have the basic skills. They didn't have the maturity level. You know what? To drive a school bus, you have to get a commercial driver's license, go through testing and training and written test and knowledge test and skills test and drive the bus. You don't get to go through any of that when you have a child. You have a night of passion and you have a baby. I always love watching 20-something-year-old mothers who are very immature, pierced, tattooed, rude, no manners, and all of a sudden they're a mother. And they become arrogant, and I know all about raising kids. You just stand back and wait 18 years later, and they've raised another schloppy, yucky, rude jerk to society. My mother was and still is very immature. Basic psychology to me teaches that if you cannot face your own shortcomings and have enough gumption within you to say, son, I was abusive, I exploded, I did not handle this well. If you cannot do that, you are not mature. If you cannot ever admit, not in a generic, but in a specific point-by-point way, I did not do this right at all, and I'm sorry. I told my viewers twice my mother in a rage, and I didn't know at the time. I understand she was frustrated because I was not performing. One of the problems with females raising boys is that they try to make boys actors. And when boys did not perform on the stage the way mothers think boys should perform, all manner of problems happen. When she came into my room 2 times in Torrance, California, good old 2814 Delmead Street, I hadn't done anything that day. I just got up. She came into my room and in a rage took her arm and swept everything off the dressers, the shelves, the seashell collection that her own father gave to me. Had a horseshoe crab specimen. She threw it to the floor and broke the long point off of it. Smashed things, busted things, stomped on them, and went into a rage. I, as a kid, was terrified. What is going on with this adult woman? It's funny, when I brought that up, the house next door, when I was married, rented it for 5 years. My mother and father did make a trip out to see me. I was happy. They're coming to see us. And our boy. That's why they came. To see my boy. Not me. While sitting at the table, it was all pleasant conversation, and my mother immediately defaulted to, right in front of my wife at the time, oh, Pacific this and Pacific that. And I said, hey, whoa, hold it. I remember when you came into my room in a rage and smashed everything. Where do you come up with this stuff? Even her husband said, you have a convenient way of forgetting those things that are uncomfortable for you. My dad said that. Wow, I wish he just said that all my life. Wish he'd do it now. On one of those occasions when she went into a rampage in my bedroom and smashed everything, I ran out of the house and out the front door and stood by one of the big, tall Arborvitae or juniper bushes or whatever it was. The family of model 4 boys across the street that my mother used to compare me to, who used to talk dirty and do things on the way to school. They were smart kids. They learned this is the way we behave in front of mother. This is the way we behave when we're not in the presence of mother. The oldest kid comes out and says, Michael, what is wrong? He's calling on. I'm standing there crying so hard that no sound's coming out. I'm just sobbing. I wouldn't answer him. I was terrified to say a word. He kept calling, what's wrong? What's wrong? Finally, my mother must have seen him, and she didn't come out where she was visible. Michael, get in here right now! No wonder I'm insecure as hell. Growing up with a crazed fool like that. When my mother was frustrated, at a very young age, she would make me sleep in the camper truck parked in the driveway in Los Angeles. I was bored. So I'd dig little holes in the cupboard doors, start digging because they were hollow in the middle. I couldn't go out of there, so I'd pee on the floor. Then I got yelled at and in trouble for that. You know what's sad, viewers? I remember everything from my childhood, and there's a lot of crap back there. Then you go to public school. I learned very early. I was on the monkey bars. I had not started across. I waited for this girl. She went across, went back, and then I went out. She came across, kicked me, knocked me down, punched me for no reason. I got a big road rash in the sand. Fast forward to 5th grade, Mammoth Elementary School. I can't mention the name because of legalities. I'm standing in line for the school bus in the hallway of the school. I'm naive. I still try to be nice to people. A girl cuts right in front of me, bumping me, and I said, hey, you took cuts. I didn't touch her. She turned around, grabbed me by the hair, punched me in the face, and was beating the stuff out of me. Women don't want to hear these stories at all, but we men have had our own rash of wreckage from women. And people watch this video and say, you need to get help. No, I don't. I know now why all this happened. My mother was immature. The woman in line, the girl in line was taught at a very early age that it was acceptable for girls to be violent, rude, and step all over the rights of another male. It's funny, I still remember the names of both of those girls. The one in Torrance had a strong sounding name anyway. It's a name that if I were to drop it, everybody would go, oh my gosh, just the name sounds deadly. Having female teachers because I'm sitting in class and I'm swinging my foot and kicking the desk in front of me because I'm bored out of my gourd. The teacher grabbing me by the neck and embarrassing me in front of students and treating me like a piece of refuse. Yelling, belittling. And it wasn't until decades later that I finally said, you know, these women were immature and incapable as mothers, teachers, leaders. I remember when I was in 5th grade, there was a girl, blonde hair, and I was shocked. I'm sitting at a table, she sits across from me, and this is what comes out of her mouth. I don't talk to her because I was very shy back then. I really was scared of people. She goes, boys are so stupid. They sit in the bathtub and they play submarine with their penis and they pull on it. Oh, it won't go any further. I'd never heard talk like this in my life, and I'm like, oh, what was that? I had an older sister who would be mean, tickle me, I'd bang my head, hurt myself, say I'm going to tell. She'd run and try to console me, fill up a glass of Listerine. Here, I got you some water. I start drinking it. What is this? Some of you may say, well, that's normal sibling rivalry. I was considerably younger than her. I didn't know a thing. My cousin tells me stories when my oldest sister had to babysit all of us, and she would say, I'll call the police on you. You'll never get to see your mother again. My sister was evil. My cousin says, I don't like her. I've never liked her. I don't trust her. What does this have to do with the book? I was raised in a culture of women. And when women hear me say stuff about women, they've got a lot of gall and a lot of nerve to say, he's misogynistic. By the way, that is a stupid word invented by feminists, just for the record. When males in our society have been raised in this kind of an incubator with these kinds of women, no wonder when other things happened that I started experimenting sexually. I always am fearful and afraid. Do you know when I go around other men with the suits and ties, I feel a sense of fear? I've been laughed at and rejected all my life. I get around professionals, and I learned at a very early age, don't trust professionals. Why? Because I watched my dad dress up in suit and tie to go to church once in a blue moon, and my mother put on a dress. But I lived with him. I learned at a very early age the book, How to Dress for Success. That's not entirely true. Many people in America dress up on Sunday morning and in the office, but I see them when they get behind their SUV. Men have never been properly raised. For the most part, there are exceptions. Why is our culture so aggressive on the roads? Why are women so aggressive? Well, because nobody knows their place anymore. Men don't. Women don't. Women want to compete against us men. We've been told how terrible and rotten and awful we are, and I'm sitting here telling my story, and most of the women that need to hear this from a male perspective will not listen to my channel, and all they'll do is go blah, 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 and scribble me right out of their life. So me, I look at women who cannot listen to truth, and the first thing that goes through my mind is, and I'm supposed to respect you all? I don't think so. Some people watch my videos and say stuff like, this guy hates women. Oh, Pacific's making another video, 100 different ways to hate women. That was said to me by somebody I know, and it was funny, but that is the general perception that people just perching in on one of the videos get right away. And it takes some mature women that said, after I watched your videos for a while, I saw your heart. No wonder Pacific never made relational good choices with women. No wonder Pacific's been married 3 times. No wonder Pacific found it quite fun to frolic with women. Then you go into a church culture that doesn't know any of this background. Oh, you're divorced. You can't serve. Oh, good. More rejection. Love this. You go to church with men and women that have been raised in this culture. You go to a Christian school. Most of the teachers are women. And this is what's written up about Johnny. He will not sit still. He's distracting the class. He's 6 years old, lady. He's a boy. You're going to put a kid 5 hours in school all day to sit still in a classroom and give him a 15-minute recess? Are you freaking serious? I wonder if the reason men are so aggressive behind the wheel of their big pickups and stuff is because they never got to play with Tonka toys and be rough and tough in a sandbox. Maybe. Excuse me. I was raised by women. This is how I viewed my dad. He comes home from work. My dad was kind of a dead individual, boring. But boy, when he exploded, it was GD, it was Jesus Christ's name in vain, it was cussing. And that's what I saw in my dad. I was afraid of him. I thought, oh man, don't get his wrath up. My dad tried to teach me how to play golf. I got hit over the head with a golf club on accident. Tried to teach me how to play football, which I had no interest in. And my dad tuned out of me very early on. Well, I guess he's not going to be a sports star. I'm done. On the weekends, my dad was plopped in front of the TV watching football, drinking beer, eating chips, junk food. My dad was sedentary. I'm full of energy, being yelled at. Michael, knock it off. Michael, pipe down. Stop it. Blah, 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 blah. Most of my childhood I was spent playing in the backyard by myself, or locked in my bedroom with a catch on the door for 10 years of my life. I already told you about that in another video. Yes, a hook and eye catch. When I was little, I didn't have enough strength to pull that door open. When we moved to Mammoth, they put a catch on my door again. But then I was 11 years old. I grabbed that doorknob and pulled and ripped the whole business out of the door and the jamb and said, I'm done with this. I'm not a caged animal. The question has been asked over and over, why did they adopt you? I have no idea, but I'm getting a clearer picture looking back at my mother's life. Kids and puppies and buying things is happiness. You know, after I became a Christian, you know what the first thought was that hit me because I was acutely aware of how sinful I was? I thought, man, if I was more like Jesus, if I was perfect, my mother never would have gotten mad at me. I thought that way for years. If I'd have been more like Jesus and just never rocked the boat. And it took me years to say, hold it. You're not Jesus. You were a boy. That did not give your mother the right to behave this way. Ever. When I wrote a letter addressing all these issues, my mother never took the time to pick up the phone and say, I got your letter. And yes, it disturbs me. Let's talk about it. Never. She passed that around to the rest of the family, got on the phone with the relatives in Los Angeles from Arizona, and went all over the place. And all the women said, oh my gosh, Pacific is this terrible monster. At one time in my life when I addressed this, I had my grandma, two of my aunts, my oldest sister, my youngest sister, all ganged up against me. I was married to my wife of 14 years, and even she said, what is the matter with these people? You simply bring up what you went through in your childhood because they've been criticizing you all your life, and they can't handle it. And I said, pretty much. To this day, my mother still believes I'm emotionally unstable and I'm a big mess. I noticed another pattern with my mother. I have two aunts that are bipolar. One of them is her sister. The other one is my dad's sister. My mother likes to come in as the savior. Oh, she needs help. When she could not help me, and she couldn't put a clinical diagnosis where she could control me, and she tried. You must have eaten corn again. She sent me a letter back in the 90s Excuse me. No, it would have been about 2003. Said I was mentally ill, and I wrote her back the following. I wish I still had a copy of it, I said. In 1989, I moved to Duluth, Minnesota on a shoestring. Drove a van all the way across the country all by myself. I stayed with an acquaintance for 3 weeks, went out and got my own apartment on a Friday, had a job on Monday, and I scratched out an existence, and then I became a school bus driver in 1990. I drive a bus. Students respect me, parents respect me, and my friends that know me would all verify that I'm anything mentally ill. Mentally ill people don't drive school buses. Mentally ill people do not move across the country, start up out of nothing, and make it. I said, but actually, I'm getting a clear picture looking at the people you're hanging out with in your life that you couldn't stand when I was growing up in the house, and now you become friends with them. One of them was the mother of a girl I dated in high school and shortly after high school. That girlfriend told me in my truck one night, my mother does not accept me. She puts me down and compares me to my older sister. Why can't you be like her? Why can't you be like her? One night, my girlfriend, when I had left town and moved on, got in her car and drove off and got lost in the Thumb Butte wilderness area of Prescott, Arizona, and it made the news. Mother was aghast and embarrassed. This young woman grew up much like me, put down, laughed at, mocked. When I dated this daughter, I'm going to be very blunt. I was very naive then. The mother met me, and it didn't take her long to put a moniker on me, and she called me the little red-headed sucker. It's not what you think. No, I wasn't doing anything inappropriate to the daughter. And I thought to myself, why is she calling me little red-headed sucker? To tell you how stupid and naive I was, even the girl started calling me that. So I had a sign put on the back of my window of my truck, LRS, and her name, and a heart. I look back at that and go, what in the heck was the matter with me? I was totally, at the time, in love with her. Both my mother and her mother were into antiques. Both of them are Catholic. She's strict and domineering. Her husband's a wussy. My father's a wussy. And my mother didn't like her when I dated this gal in the 80s. Now they're best friends. So I wrote in that same letter declaring my mental competency to remind her that mentally ill people don't drive school buses and work with children, because it would be found out very quickly what they are mentally, and they would be, you're out of here, dude. At 48 years old, Pacific has more knowledge of students and more know-how and more practical working knowledge of how to deal with kids than my parents have to the present at their current age. The next time somebody says you're just a dumbass bus driver, oh no, I'm not. People think I have a college education. No, I've just paid attention to life. I watch kids on the bus, and I made my mistakes. I used to rule with an iron fist. I used to get up and yell at everybody, pull the air brake, get up, y'all sit down, It took me years to grow up and mature and say, this is not the way to deal with kids. Junior high boys will look at every flaw on that driver. Oh, look, she's got a pimple on her nose. Oh my gosh, the North Star. And they'll sit there, 10 of them, and spin on that. And if they see they're getting to you, they'll grab those bellows and go, look at that. Oh, she's getting mad. The Bible says, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. My mother and my father both provoked me to wrath. My dad would make mean, nasty comments, saying I eat too much, calling me a pig. I'm shoveling all the snow out there. I'm busting my butt, and I'm slenderer than anybody in that family. Anybody. Anybody. I have surpassed every one of the relatives in my family for physique. Every one. I was made fun of for eating too much. I was made fun of for talking all the time. I was made fun of for having a loud voice. At 48 years old, I can walk from the break room down to that bus lot and pass every single driver and paraprofessional walking without trying. Call me the SS United States. Set the speed record, and it's untouched. Is there a sense of pride in me for that? Yeah, it's a simple thing, walking. Why did that happen? I was put down all my life, so when I became good at something, I felt a little heady. At 48 years old, I have more energy and stamina and physique than both the parents that adopted me when they were in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and obviously now. To be put down for being hyper when at 48 years old my energy level is still right at the top. I had a little fun when I was in Hong Kong. One day I was feeling particularly full of adrenaline and vim. I took the ferry from Kowloon. I got off the dock at Central Piers and I motored straight up the hill. Caught the escalator systems and didn't ride them, but walked them. People that didn't want to walk stayed to the right. People that wanted to walk stayed on the left. I zoomed. Hold on a second. I think I better let this doggy out. No, I guess she's just stretching. I made it up to Victoria Peak in something like 20 or 25 minutes. And I went through a sea of humanity to get there. People in my way, the whole thing. I didn't bump anybody. When I got to the last escalator, I went up a road, turned a bend, went around the corner, took a hard left, and hit the peak pathway. That peak pathway is like this in places. I saw several Australian men and women walking at various points along the path. One of them, an Amazonian-looking Australian with a sports bra, big boobs, the whole thing. She was really putting herself into it. She was jogging. Can I tell you that I love seeing that because I thought, I'm going to overtake her. I have my shirt off, my shorts, my dorky glasses. She's huffing and puffing. And trust me, I'm sweating and I'm breathing. But I'm breathing through my nose. I'm not going, you know, the athletes love to do all that noise. Yep, you sound like a steam engine going up that hill. The SS United States. All they see is prop wash. I get to the top. I rest a few minutes. Wait for all the others to catch up to me. And zoom down the hill. Let me tell you something. That was when I was 45. No. Yeah, 45 and a half. No, just shy of 46. Because it would have been in 2012. The next morning, my calves were so sore. Because when you go down that steep, oh my gosh, you're using braking skills to keep your body from getting out of control as you're going down the steep. My calves hurt for days, but I still got up and ran around every day. No pain, no gain. So it's stuff like that that made me look down at my parents and go, okay, you both were very sedentary. He's overweight, has bad eating habits. She wasn't what I call high energy. And you adopt somebody who's not your DNA, who's high energy, who's nuclear, who's turbo all the way, and you take a sledgehammer, you're bad. You're bad. You're hyper. You talk too much. Calm down. Sit down. Shut up. I'll hit you in the teeth. And I heard this like a broken record mantra all my life. And then to hear my mother have the tact and the pros, or whatever you want to call it, get on the phone. Oh, yes, Pacific's being flippity jibbit again. He just. As a kid hearing that in the background, what was I taught? You have no value. You're a constant source of frustration and problem to your mother. You're no good. You're a bad dog, bad dog, bad dog. Do you know what that does? You start to believe it after a while. And you start acting accordingly. Well, I'm bad, so I'll just go and smash these windows out of this house, and I'll just go do this. Oh, yeah. Then you enter your sexual era. You got all this junk going on in the mix, and then you suddenly wake up one morning and you're like, I have a boner. What's that? What do you do with that? This stuff needs to be mentioned, women, and you need to hear it because this is serious. Pacific has been told, as of the last couple of years, by other women, you carry yourself very well. And I'm like, inside I'm going, I do? Really? That church secretary, the spinster for Jesus, that ended up rejecting me because I wouldn't submit to her, play her little game. You need to go to my pastor and tell him all about your marriage to Beth in Hong Kong and all. Why? It's none of his business. I just come back to the U.S. I don't know him. They don't need to know my past. It has no bearing. Do you want to date me or not? That's the choice you need to make, not your pastor. You're 46 years old, lady. Make your own decision. That's why Pacific is able to look at the phony baloney in church. That's why Pacific is able to commentate on drivers and people and parents and feminism, because I went through all of this stuff. I consider myself an expert in the making. I consider that one day, if I keep going the way I'm going, that I might be qualified to counsel many people, because psychology is not about a psych degree. It's about paying attention. It's about reading good stuff. It's about getting your mind expanded to what you went through. And it's about not playing a victim, but saying, this stuff was messed up. And I'll wager to say that most of us watching have been through their own lion's share of problems with parents. But it is true. When I grew up, this book was published in 1971, copyrighted. Okay? I was born in 66. I was put on Ritalin as a kid. It didn't work. My mother tried all these theories and remedies that went around. Well, maybe caffeine would have an opposite effect on him. Maybe caffeine would calm him. So every day I came home from school, sit down and drink your coffee. What? I liked it. But after that was found not to work, she stopped. I never drank coffee again. What do you do with a woman who cannot handle a boy? And I will tell you something. Women don't handle boys well, even as bus drivers. I notice that the women tend to have more trouble with the boys than the guys that drive. Why? Because women think that boys need to behave like women. That's unattainable. You put a bunch of rambunctious boys in a classroom. They're supposed to fold their hands, sit quietly at a desk for an hour on end, and learn to do things that girls, it comes naturally for. Maybe that's why our public education has not been doing a real good job. Maybe that's why when they started years ago opening up secondary vocational classes in educational systems, where I would go down in the school bus and pick up a bunch of kids that everybody considered the troubled kids, the dropout kids, take them to marine small engine repair, take them down to a gas station to work on cars that was owned by the school district in Duluth. And these kids that were doing the hands-on stuff started to shine. That was a smart move for the school districts around the country to start doing that. But they're not doing enough. They need to start educating women. You've got boys in your class. Don't expect them to perform and behave like girls. They're not girls. That is sexist, ladies. Nothing is said about that. What are boys taught from their earliest? Don't touch a girl, that's inappropriate. Don't say this to a woman, that's inappropriate. Don't do this, don't do that. What are women taught in regards to boys? You can crap on them, you can diss them, you can blame them for everything, and you can put them down because they're, oh my gosh, he's a boy, he's such a squirrel. Do you see what I'm getting at? I've just shown you the foundation for why men today are really messed up. And then you put those men back out on the street, and they get involved with these entitled, these women that have been taught, excuse me, allergies today, that are taught that men are bad and that women are supreme. No wonder 50% of all marriages end in divorce. And then when the man and the woman get divorced, of course, that's always the male's fault. I'm going to say something that should go without saying. Any rational thinking person, whether they got a college degree or not, should be able to look at our American situation and go, this can't possibly be all the fault of men. I just laid a foundation and a story that's true, that I was raised by women expecting me to behave like women. I was raised by an insecure, immature, emotionally retarded mother, whose motive for adopting me was not based in any truth at all, but feelings. Oh, isn't he cute? He's a little redhead baby. Oh. And when that cute little redhead did not perform to her expectations, it's like the toy you bought at the store. You were fascinated with it, and when it broke, then it was discarded. You think I'm dumb? I'm the toy that broke. I'm the toy that at some point my so-called mother and father said, we're done. But we're going to go around the country visiting everybody else because they have babies. Do you see the connection? We're going to go up and see my cousin because we never saw his children. My sister is a devout Mormon. Of course, that stands to reason. Mormons brag that they got the corner on the family market. We are family. I cannot stand Mormonism. Why? Because it contradicts the Word of God. It is not set up by, instituted by Jesus Christ. I'm not going to get on that tangent, but watching my sister, she doesn't even follow good Mormon standard. She has lied. She has thrown my sister and I under the bus. She was deceptive, mean to my cousin. Nothing has changed. She's the favored one, always will be the favored one. She'll get the full inheritance. I don't care. All I wanted was my mother and dad's love. I've had to accept the fact that that's not going to happen. You're done with them. They're done with you. So I pick up my bag of scars, go through life and say, how do I deal with things? Well, It started with something simple that just this last year. Stop managing your students out of your insecurities and shortcomings. Stop it. Do you know we're not taught that in training in student management? It's a self-discovery. It's okay if those kids know you're not perfect. But if you come off as Mr. Authority and you start yelling and screaming, the kids are going to go, "You're a mess, driver." Yelling and screaming means you've lost control, and the kids got you right by the short hairs. I've seen the profound effect of walking slowly down that aisle, keeping a soft voice. You might want to listen up. This is important information you need to know. They keep talking. I'm not going to be able to leave until I have all ears attentive to what I'm saying. When they see they're not getting to me and the other kids say, "Shut up! Driver's trying to talk, shut up." Sweet, they yelled for me. I love it. Make them work for you. I'm not saying this works in every situation. There's some kids that are just flat out so full of their own dysfunction that they're going to test you no matter what. It's okay to be human. But when you're dealing with kids, you need to admit when you're wrong and you need to back up. And most American parents were not taught that simple basic skill. They were taught, don't ever let your kids see your weakness. They're already seeing it. But if you vocalize and say, "You know, son, I did not handle that well. I came in your room and smashed everything in a fit of rage, and I am sorry. I lost control of myself because I can't handle raising kids." I find that most kids don't stand up and go, "Oh, yeah, say that." It's okay, Mom. Thank you for apologizing. I falsely accused, and I thought that a kid had ripped a seat years ago in Duluth, and I accused him. I said, "Dude, I wrote you up. You were the one sitting there." "I didn't do it, man." "You were the only one sitting there." When another kid told me he didn't do it, he moved to another seat when you were on a route, another kid went in there and I watched him do it. "Oh, really? Will you sign your name to that?" "Yes, I will." I went back to that kid and said, "Another kid just defended your butt. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to accuse you. I really thought you had done it." "It's okay, mister. Thank you for apologizing." And I did it in front of the whole bus. I said, "I wrongly accused this kid of ripping the seat, and I found out who did it, and I want to make a public apology." You think those kids rioted and said, "Well, let's get rid of this guy. He's not qualified to drive us"? No. Wow. He admitted he was wrong. It takes a lot of guts to admit you're wrong. People that don't admit they're wrong are ruling by insecurity. They have no control of their own lives, so they're not going to let anybody get through that paper-thin veneer of theirs by admitting that some transparency. I was raised in a culture of women. I was not raised in a culture of men. My uncle, my dad's brother, was a banker. Every time I saw him, he was laying on his belly in front of a TV set. Oh, yes, we did some trips to places and stuff. But my image of the American male was corrupted from the start. I didn't see a loving father who tried to get into my world and say, "I've adopted a boy who's clearly different than me. I sell insurance. I'm content to sit in an office all day. I'm content to watch football. He has no interest in this stuff. How do I relate to him?" He didn't. He couldn't. And I wouldn't hold that against him, except he doesn't have the intelligent fortitude to wake up and go, "I didn't handle this one right at all." Pacific has had to do a lot of mistakes. Go to Hong Kong, go to the Philippines, drive buses to learn about who I am. The success of this YouTube channel has given me huge amounts of confidence. I'm not a nut job and I'm not a train wreck. I can understand to the casual observer. Married and divorced 3 times, this guy's a loser. We all have foundations that were cracked, some more than others. What women in America aren't realizing is that when they raise the boys, when they put the boys under the grid of their idea for what a boy should act like, when it's more in line with how women act and what's natural for women, you are causing irreparable, messed up damage. Why do you think it was easy for me to suddenly fall prey to somebody touching me, even though it was disgusting, some man wanting to put his hands on me? It was approval. It was affirmation. And at the core of every one of my let me rephrase that. You're all human. At the core of every one of you, my viewers, whether you're from India, Pakistan, whether you're Muslim, atheist, agnostic, whether you're from Duluth, whether you're from Denver, or Indonesia, or Timbuktu, we want the following things. We want to be valued. We want to feel that we have a sense of worth. And we want to be respected. When you don't get those basic ingredients from your mom and dad, it opens the door for all manner of evil to flood the gates of hell. You open the door for homosexual behavior, for lesbian behavior, for bi-curious, for cross-dressers, for transsexuals. Oh, am I getting somewhere? Yes. Because in American society, more issue is made about getting a college degree and buying the right car than is made about parenting. There are millions of books in print in the U.S. on parenting. Most of them are full of poo-poo. Then you go to the Christian church. You go to Sunday school. The teacher's a woman. And the teacher's doing the same thing in Sunday school that they're doing in the public classroom. Boys, sit down. Stop fidgeting. It's Sunday morning. You bust in a bunch of kids from the projects. You bust in kids whose parents are alcoholics, sleeping with different men every week, and you're expecting these little black Negro children, these white children, these Mexican children, these Native American children to sit down and calm down in a Sunday school class and watch flannel graph presentations of Daniel in the Lion's Den and behave themselves? Are you freaking serious? Are you really serious, ladies? Oh, yes, they are. We're planting seeds of truth. No, you're following the world system. I wonder what churches would do if they took those kids that are wound up and said, here, you're going to put on this costume, and you're going to be a lion today, and you're going to play Daniel, and we're going to live this story out. Ooh, gross motor skills. I get to be a lion. Don't you think that's going to stick with them more than a flannel graph presentation with a Sunday school teacher saying, stop it, sit down, stop it? And then going out in the hallway with the other elders of the church going, oh, these kids are so rambunctious, they're so bad. And then by the time they get on my church bus, they are ramped up, out of their seats, running around. I had Native Americans, blacks, and whites on my little church bus in Duluth. I'm going to contradict myself for just a minute. I don't believe in Christian rock and all that for worship. But these kids were unbelievers. There was a very pretty group of Native American girls on my bus. They liked me. Native Americans. Brown skin, long black hair. One was beautiful. I saw her years later. She called out my name. I didn't recognize her. She was pregnant, unwed. Oh my gosh, she was so beautiful. How sad. And I used to start off with this. They were rambunctious. Be driving the bus and I go, I got a story that I like to tell, so everyone just listen well. And the kids start going, what's that? Paul and Silas were thrown in jail. They bound them up without the bail. They didn't moan and groan. They didn't rant and rave. Paul turned to Silas and said, "Brother, let's praise." "Wow, he's doing rap music." They sat down, and every Sunday I had to sing that song until I got sick of it. "Do your rap, do your rap." I thought, do I gotta? I just did it. Now it's going to sound like well, see, Pacific, you used a worldly way to reach them. I used the only way I knew how. But I love those kids. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. And when I drove that church bus, I watched Sunday school teachers and people get fed up with them. And I thought, look at where they're coming from. What is it about women expecting boys to fold their hands and sit still? What a battle that is unnecessary. You take boys to the beach for the day, and I'll tell you what, parents aren't yelling at them. They're out there having a ball. Ocean waves and sand castles and mats of seaweed and boogie boards, and you expect boys to sit and behave themselves for 300 miles in a car trip with chain-smoking parents, playing crappy music, arguing and kibitzing with each other, and I'm supposed to sit back there and go, with my little halo on? Yep, that's the way most American parents rule. Kids are being a pain in the butt. The biggest rule of most American parents is don't bother me. Don't bother me, don't disturb me, don't make me mad. I remember Beth used to tell me that. Your job is to please me. Your job is to never make me mad. I said, that is not true. That is not my job. My job is to love you as Christ loved the church, which sometimes means that I have to tell you things you don't want to hear. No, but you better not make me mad. I said, you're in control of your anger, baby. Don't put that on me. Feminism has gotten so far out of hand that I just don't think we're ever going to back this up. But what we can do is tell our story. Pacific has told his. It is hard to be a man in today's society because most males today don't know how to be. The guy in his pickup truck yesterday was not behaving as a man. He looks like a toughie, he thinks he's toughy, and he acted worse than a teenager. An adult who lost his composure wrecked his truck because he had a little temper tantrum, whether the woman was going the speed limit or not in that left lane. What is this guy doing? Tailgating her. Where does it say in the Florida State Driver's Manual that if somebody's going in the left lane, either at the speed limit or under it, and they're not moving, you have a right to tailgate and bully them? Where does it say that? Somebody wrote me on my site and said, well, she was staying in the left lane. Dude, everywhere I go, when I go home at night, all these pickups and SUVs are staying in that far left lane on the freeway. They don't even move out of it. They think because they're going way over the speed limit, they have a right to it and own it. That's not what Colorado law says. Slower traffic, keep right, except to pass. It's just slower traffic. That's talking about speed limit. Technically speaking, all the traffic should be to the right, going the speed limit. That far left lane should be only when traffic is so heavy that you have no choice and to pass. But no, Americans with their lovely entitlement, self-centered mentality, I have a right to that lane because I'm flying. Speed limit's 55. Well, but he needs to get out of the way. He's going 55. He does not need to get out of your way. You see what I'm getting at? Americans' thinking is jacked. I'm going 60, he's going 55. He doesn't have a right to that lane. That's not what the law says. He's going 55. He's got every right to stay there. You need to back off and get a chill pill, dude. Americans don't like it when I say you got to go the speed limit. Well, nobody does. Oh, good rationale. American men have not grown up right. We were raised in a culture dominated by women. Sunday school, public schools. Now, men are forced to go to the workplace and have to submit to female supervisors, female bosses, and you got a lot of female supervisors that are racist, that are very anti-male, and that's causing even further problems. A guy comes to work, does his job, has a good attitude, and doesn't understand why the supervisor is being rude to him, ignoring him, putting him down, being rude whenever she addresses him. And if you dig a little deeper, you go, wait a minute, I've got a feminist, male-hating boss. Who hired and put that woman in position? Is that equality? Is that workplace sensitivity? More and more, I find myself, when I have to deal with something at work, I'm taking on some of these women saying, how come this woman can say, I'm going to kick this guy's ass, is ignored, but if a man walks in and says that joking or otherwise, he can be called into human services. Fortunately, I had a talk with my boss one day, and she said, oh, no, I'm not one of those. If I hear a woman say it, I will call her in and say, that is inappropriate. I said, thank you. I have a very good boss at work. The more I get to know her, I respect her. I still believe that positions of authority need to be held by men, not women. Men need to teach men. Women need to teach women. And women need to stop fostering an environment of anti-maleism and start teaching ladies how to be ladies and dress like ladies and behave like ladies. Not telling them, you don't need to put up with this, you need to compete, you don't need a man. We need to stop with that education, because all that's doing is causing wreckage, flotsam, jetsam, and debris fields all over the place. But I think my viewers needed to hear from me today that I was raised by women. I was not raised by men. That's why I can talk clearly, intelligently, and articulately about feminism. That's why. I have earned the right. I was well schooled by feminists, entitled women, women that don't admit they're wrong. I have a right to talk about it. Isn't this cool? My hair's starting to grow, man. And you know what? Once it gets heavier, it'll start straightening out. I'm going for right here, folks. Right here. I've decided I'm going for it. Just as a sidebar, a woman came up to me yesterday and gave me her phone number. I had sensed that she was interested. She's nice. She's not really my type. But I was like, wow, somebody gave me their phone number. I never asked for it. Made me feel pretty good. Not interested enough to pursue it, though. Viewers, we as Christians have been taught, oh, this is secular psychology. Actually, what I just read to you, he's just stating facts. There's no psychobabble here. It's tough to be a man. And here's another one. It's the boy who pays, but John grew up in a different time. It is still true today that the boy is stuck with the expenses of a date. A recent rap session with a group of boys at a small Ivy League college indicated that this is still the way things are. This was in 1971. Still, we're stuck with the expenses. We're used by the girls as someone to take them out. Our parents expect it, encourage it. I can always get money from them to date a girl. That's accepted. It's twice as hard to get half as much money when I want to get to a movie and dinner with another guy. In other words, guys will go together and guys will go Dutch. But girls, even early on, even when feminism was in full swing back then, the girl still expected the guy to pay for everything. We're expected to be creative thinkers. Ask a girl what she wants to do, and she'll pull this anything you want to do, S-H-I-T. The onus is put on us to come up with an idea for the evening. If it doesn't work out, believe me, they let us know later what they'd rather have done. Why can't a girl ever say, I want to do this, I want to go there? In the end, they'll get their way or make us suffer. Women, are you listening to this? This is 1971, and it's still true today. I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to go back to work. And then when she goes back to work, I'm blamed for that. This stuff is horse manure. It needs to stop. They exploit us sexually. They play a neat game of come on, being flirtatious and warm and yielding, and we're sucked in, and at the last minute, when it looks like we've got it made, they draw back. Who, me? Oh no, not that. That still goes on today. Women are teasers. I've tried enough experimenting. When I ignore women at work and public school teachers that come out to my bus that don't have the decency, there's paraprofessionals that come out of schools. You can tell they're feminists. They'll never say hi. They'll never greet me. They'll bring the student. Oh, you have a nice day, la 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 la, and pretend they're all interested in the student, usually a girl. And my thing is, she's probably a lesbian. The teacher doesn't say hi to me. He doesn't say, hey, bus driver, how you doing? When you ignore those women consistently, now feminists have gotten real hard today. Some of them now don't care. But generally speaking, when you ignore a bunch of women because they just think they're all that in a bag of chips, it will not be long until they start trying to edge their way and talking and getting some conversation out of you. Because as soon as you give them the satisfaction of looking and noticing them, they've got their little ego boost, and then they'll trash you again. They expect us to be masters at the whole game of sex. We don't know any more than they do, and we're just as scared. Oh, maybe a few of us are into this new sex freedom business, but believe me, most of us are frightened of the whole thing as the girls are. Why do we have to be the experts? Why can't we be unsure and worried and still be accepted as men? This is 1971, folks. They use us to take them places. As a boy, don't mean anything. It's the wheels I can get hold of, the places I can take her, the big shots I might know. I feel I'm some kind of a key she used to get into places. What kind of a relationship is that? And looking back to a more tender age, how many boys of 3 or 4 or 5 years, or 5, have been removed from a quarrel and told, no, you must not hit little girls, even if they hit you first. You mustn't hit them. And if they do hit you and it hurts, you mustn't cry because boys don't cry. 1971. I made a comment to somebody the other day, a lady that I like and we're friends, and I said, if a girl hits me, I'm going to deck her. Self-defense. You wouldn't. I said, equality, baby. Equality. If a woman's bold enough to take me on, which is inappropriate to be handling me, you bet. You know what? You know what bothers me? Here, let's see if I can find something here. If a woman wants to hit me, yeah, there we go. Then don't I have the right to fire back? It's just a question that I have. You know? And most men today are finally giving me a thumbs up. Because we men have had enough. I don't believe men should hit, but I don't believe women should hit either. No sex has the right to physically harm another, except in self-defense. I'm sorry. This is not a Christian book. This is not a book a pastor will even talk about. When he gives his Sunday morning homily or sermon, Lola Chalfant, Vintage Wines and Imports. Wow. Old business card stuck in here. It's not mine. I don't do wines. Too many pastors say sola scriptura. And the reason people are listening to my channel is because I give the foundational truth of the Word of God, but that Word of God encompasses all the truth that originates originally from God. This man's just simply making observations, and this stuff is dead on. 1971, this stuff is still as fresh today as it was back then. I love the smell of old books, too. Here's a section called Learning from Fish. Aggression and submission. Boy, this is wild. The predator with a brain. How men see themselves. That's interesting. I'm going to have to read this book. The Bad Woman. Wow. Sheesh. Look at all this stuff. How do men see women? The perfect match. You know, I was closed-minded for a lot of years. I thought, oh, this is secular. Viewers, what is truth? Pilate asked that question. What is truth? Truth is anything that's true. I don't care if a Buddhist, an atheist, an agnostic, a Taoist, or a Christian says it. Christians don't own truth. God owns truth. And there are people that are lost and headed for hell. There are people who don't believe, but they still got truth in them. They can make observations and go, man, this is really messed up. And we can learn from those people too. I used to say all the time in my younger years, everybody's my teacher. Some teach me how to live, some teach me how not to live. Some impart to me profound wisdom. Some of them make me go, man, I'm wiser than they are. You know, when I look at my mom and dad, they were teachers. It took me years to learn, don't do thou likewise. I'm feeling a sense of liberation because I'm still working on things. But exploding and yelling at kids isn't the way to do it. And I didn't do that with my son. I didn't scream and yell. I never call him stupid and berate. I didn't slap him in the face. He used a spoon, a wooden spoon, and one swat on the butt. No bruises, no marks. I never said, you stupid boy, you're a complete fool. I'd say, son, why did you do that? I'd appeal to the intellect in him and say, why did you do that? I don't know. I said, well, that wasn't a good move. Don't do that, please. And here's why. Basic concepts. I went downstairs one day to my workbench and I took a couple of Hot Wheels. He said, Dad, can I smash these? I said, sure. Let me help you. Grabbed the hammer, put it in the vice grip. That's cool. I said, now you have a wrecked car for your playtime. You can have the full-on car chase. And here's the wrecked car. You know what mothers do when boys start tearing things apart? Oh, he's a monster. No, they're very curious how it's put together. I took apart garbage disposals, TV sets, houses, furniture. And now today, I take apart people. I take apart experiences and I analyze them. I'm not a repairman. I'm a dismantler. Because when I pull this piece apart and this piece, it reveals this. Oh, that's what's wrong. If only my mother knew that I'd become more proficient at working with children than she is. The worst possible candidate. The hyper kid who doesn't get good grades, who was out of control in school, out of control in the home, who couldn't be totally dominated by a domineering mother, is now working with children. Do I consider myself an expert? No. Do I consider myself far superior than her in her skills? Absolutely. But I had to learn the hard way, and most adults of my generation didn't learn it. This is the way we do things and always do things, and we don't change. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again with the same fruitless results and not stopping and going, we need to stop this. You know how good it makes me feel when my high schoolers say, have a good spring break, driver? Thank you. You know why? Because it's called respect. I know drivers and I know adults, well, they're just kids. Just? No, that's a human being. And when you say they're just kids, you think they don't pick up on the condescension? When my dad has a bumper sticker on his 72 Dodge pickup that says, avenge yourself, live long enough to be a problem to your children, while we were teenagers, what do you think that said? Here we are. We didn't have tinted windows back then. Big glass window, no sliding window. Here's a sticker. There's the head of my sister, the head of me, and my dad. What do you think that's saying to the community in the small town we lived in? Oh, this guy's got some bad kids. Thanks, Dad. for valuing us in front of John Q. Public. Or did you see the bumper sticker that says "Fart"? Fathers against radical teenagers. You know, that's all funny, right? But that is causing some hurt in us that have to grow up being subjected to that. That's messed up, man. That's messed up. Parents, if you lack the maturity to raise kids, could you try to do what I've learned to do? Stop operating from your insecurity. Admit that you can't handle us. Admit it. Because when you start admitting that, then you might become a successful parent. Admit that I'm too much for you. But stop playing games and stop putting it all on us. You're the one that adopted me. You're the one that couldn't manage yourself. You're the one that has no self-control. You're the one that didn't have the social tools because of your own screwed up background. My mother's father was out at sea all the time. She had a mother who tended to be a non-dealer. I don't like controversy, so I avoid it. Oh gosh, there was dysfunction in that family. My dad's side, my grandma put down men, put down her husband in front of everybody. She was very controlling of her one daughter, so much so that daughter, well older than me, was still hanging on mommy's apron strings and now is bipolar. I'm not saying that's connected. The people that adopted me had their own dysfunctions, and they brought all of that compounded times 100. And here I am, a red-headed, tow-headed child who didn't know anything, being, in my formative years, being mentored by two people like this, who their own marriage is still in a shambles. There's no love, there's no passion. It's tenuous at best. And growing up, dad's in the condo, mom's in the house, dad's in the apartment, mom's in the house, mom moves to the condo, dad moves to the condo, dad's back in the house. That's what I grew up with. I didn't see love at all. Oh, we were given stuff, but I didn't see love. I didn't see sweetness. I didn't see warmth. And look at Pacific, full of passion, loves to kiss, make out, and cuddle. I was telling my friend at work, I said, at 48 years old, sometimes I just want to ravishly kiss a girl and make out behind a tree. She goes, my gosh, you're such a kid, like a teenager. I said, I know, isn't it fun? Who says at 48 you have to become stodgy and stoic and out of touch with reality? That's why some girls like me. Just because I'm old doesn't mean I'm dead. And it's not about acting immature, it's about having life. No, I think I'm quite well adjusted. I'm insecure, I have my problems, but I'm mastering it little by little, and my YouTube channel gives me great encouragement because people are seeing something here. People are connecting with this because it's real. So the next time you see a book like this, some of this is not all psychobabble, just practical observations. Oh, this is interesting. Wow, somebody already underlined all this. The woman we create. He lives with the constant threat of the loss of his job and the economically shifty shadow of a chaotic system, sees the money he makes become less and less able to support his family, and faces, at home, children who have only contempt for the world he fights in. This is the typical man of today, and when he comes home from the outside world, a world that does not appreciate him, that grinds him down with gleeful certainty, he faces the bleak prospect of his own family. What he would like, above all, is a wife unaffected by the society, unspoiled, unchanged, a wife who is all the domestic images presented by Hollywood in the 40s and 50s, Doris Day, Debbie Reynolds, and June Allison, beautifully dressed, and soft and clean and womanly and welcoming and understanding and sympathetic and calculated to rub off all the prickly burrs of an empty hostile day. This was the wife who had the dinner waiting, the children under control, the house immaculate, and the hearth fire burning, even when there was no hearth. This is what he wants and needs. For hasn't he been told in stories and movies that this is what marriage is all about? Hasn't he been led to expect it with every commercial on television, every Reader's Digest anecdote, every little stone that has helped build our culture? Sure, he expects it. He wants it, and in his heart he knows that this is the role women should play. This is what he was promised since he first learned to focus his eyes. And the odd thing, the fantastic thing, is that he believes this promise in spite of the fact that he has been brought up with the direct opposite of the promise. He has seen his own parents live out lives that give the lie to the great American dream that has nourished him. He knows that bitterness, hatred, and resentment are all normal within a family, and yet he is still stupid enough, blind enough, or perhaps human enough to accept and expect the promise. Women exist only in terms of himself. She is called into being at his wish, his will, his command. She is eternally the sleeping beauty waiting to be awakened by his kiss. The deep symbolism of the fairy tale has never left him. We have a wrong view of women, and women have rebelled that as well, and they should. Nobody looks like Doris Day 24/7. I'm dating myself. Doris Day was the hottie of her day, folks, for those of you that don't know. We need to go back and read some books of people that were smarter than us. These weren't stupid males. This is a man who wrote a book, Julius Fast, best-selling author of Body Language. I haven't read the book Body Language, but Pacific, it took me till I hit my 40s to wake up and start reading Body Language of women. I was stupid. I speak good English, but I did not know body language at all. That's interesting. Start looking at stuff like this and ask yourself some questions. What kind of a childhood did you grow up? I'm not saying play victim, don't. But analyze some things in your family and go, yeah, this really affected me. And then start tracing your damaged roots through your own life and see where you went wrong. It's very eye-opening and it's freeing, because when you start looking at that, you go, man, I can see why I did this and this. Trace your dysfunctional heritage freeway system from those who brought you into the world, the grandparents, extenuating family, and look at the choice you made and ask yourself, is there a connection? Darn tootin'. One of the biggest surprises that men find is, especially in Christian circles, and pastors are not doing any good about this, they enshrine sex. When you wait for the perfect one God has given you, that sex will be so wonderful. Okay, let's dissolve myth number one. Sex inside or outside of marriage can be wonderful. The idea that is set up in the minds of many Christian men is that if you wait for the right one, that sex will be more meaningful, more beautiful, poppycock. Sin is pleasurable for a season. Too many guys run off to marriage because emphasis has been put by pastors on your hormones, got to get control, got to get control, go marry, don't have sex before marriage. So the dating process is sped up. Men that are walking around with a perpetual heart-on say, I got to marry her, I don't want to lust, I don't want to sin. Boom, they marry her. They have the sex. And within 2 weeks, guess what? Uh-oh. I can't stand her. Something needs to be changed in our church's approach to men and women. If you think that marrying that woman that's making you get hot right now is going to solve all your problems, you're in for a rude awakening. I don't care if you marry a Playboy centerfold from Taiwan. You still don't know her mind. And what shocks most American males is they've married hotties, and after some time goes by, they see another woman at the office and go, dang, and they're shocked. What, did you think that your wife is the only one you're going to be attracted to? Today's women say, well, you should only have eyes for me. Ladies, get over yourself. Do you have only eyes for your husband? Well, I'm family, I'm faithful. You've never looked at another man and thought, wow, he's fine, look at that chest, give me a break. Women do it in a different way. They read romance novels, they watch TV shows, they watch Tom Selleck, Tom Cruise, they watch all these other guys, and secretly deep down inside, I wish my husband were like that. I wish my husband was like that. He can't be like that. One, he's not in Hollywood pulling down a 6-digit figure contract. And do you really want your husband to be like that? That actor sleeping with all these different women, boy, I'd consider that a great job. I'm getting paid to act out and sleep with these women on stage. Look at me, I'm flying on the hood of a car. I'm underneath a deuce and a half flying through Petra. You really want your husband to be like that, actor? Because if you want me to be like that, I'll be getting some with every cute girl I see. Don't think that's what you want. I'm going to sign off this video. I think I've said enough. Feminism goes deeper than what we're just talking about. We're not here to bash the women, but it's here to say that a lot of us, now men, were boys once raised by women, and women did not have the tools, the skills, or the proper training to be taught way back when, and still today. They're boys. Today's feminist movement wants to take boys and turn them into women. No wonder so many men are gay and cross-dressing and acting strange. Most boys today, I see that they just don't know their place. When I grew up, a boy was a Boy Scout. He went backpacking, he went fishing. Now today, the American male is a mess because most of us were raised in a dominant female culture that said, you are messed up because you're acting like a boy. Yeah, that's exactly what's been going on. No wonder everybody's so angry on the road. The women are pissed, the men are pissed. It's showing in the way they drive. What are they so pissed at? I don't know, but something's not right. Maybe because men never learned how to become men and get rid of that aggression in their childhood and grow up. Maybe because women didn't stand up and tell us men a long time ago, hey, will you stop portraying us like this in Hollywood? It's unrealistic. How come the women didn't stand up then and do it? Because they were getting paid to present that image. Women complain about men being pigs. Why do they keep posing for porn shots? Because it's all about the money, stupid. How come the women didn't speak out way back then about porn? How come women don't speak up about Doris Day and say, that is so unrealistic and I'm tired of it, we're going to boycott these movies? But women bought tickets to those movies too. And women secretly said, oh, I wish I could be like that. Start reading the lives of those actresses, Greta Garbo, Katharine Hepburn, Julie Andrews. Read about those women. Start digging a little deeper, they were messed up. Some of them had lesbian liaisons. Some of them slept with many men. And Hollywood puts this image together of the perfect family. American culture is bought and owned by Hollywood. I said that before. But when men are raised by women, and women are the dominant theme, dysfunction is not too far around the corner. Look at boys today, obsessed and addicted to video games, compulsive masturbation, viewing porn. What caused all this? Well, they're just men are bad. Or is it because mother doesn't know how to raise boys? I'll tell you what, we need to start looking at everything again and say, was this the right way? I don't think so. I'm not saying there weren't good women who had a right understanding of boys and were good. There are some, but they were few and far between. Most women had a very feminist, female slanted view about how boys should be raised, and it wasn't the right view at all. When you deny a boy his normal, natural things, the rough and tumble playing and aggressive behavior, and start criticizing and condemning that, you're setting the stage for later problems. You've got to let boys be boys and put in some boundaries and say, okay, now that's enough. But if you expect those boys to be like little girls, you're just creating a ticking time bomb. This is Pacific, signing off. Happy Saturday.